Hello everyone, this is Turin here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this particular battle, I will be playing the Greenskins with the new The King and the Warlord DLC. So, man, I've been having so much fun with this, and of all the new DLCs, this is absolutely my favorite. Just so many cool new resources at the disposal of both the Greenskins, the Dwarfs, and also Chaos got some new units, which actually I'll get into in a later video, but I think they're much more viable as a faction now. So very, very excited about that. But I am playing against the Dwarfs, so you are going to see new units on both of our sides here. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that. So as far as my army goes, I have a traditional front line of Black Orcs. I still feel like they're a very, very cost-effective option against the Dwarves. Just very resilient, very hard-hitting, and just all-around solid unit. And also something to consider, guys, Black Orcs are immune to psychology, as you guys can see in the tooltip down there. So the Dwarves actually have these new ethereal lords that are just so freaking strong, especially against the Greenskins, because the Greenskins don't really have that much traditional magic damage. So having units that aren't going to be terrified by them, because those ethereal lords do cause terror. So that's just something to consider in terms of the metagame, guys. I do have the Crimson Killers, who are just so cool. They actually have 44 melee attack to the 34 of these guys. And of course, their leadership is 94 actually, but that's of course with the encouragement of nearby troops. But just awesome. I really can't wait to get in there and show you guys some of their attack animations. They are just absolutely awesome. So secondary line of Nasty Skulkas. These guys are great. Stock, armor piercing, a very, very cost-effective unit against the Dwarves. I mean, pretty much a lot of the new units that the Greenskins got just absolutely decimate the Dwarves. Just having armor piercing on a cheap low-tier unit like this is very, very strong. And the fact that they have stock is also very cost-effective. If you guys look over here, I actually have a Vanguarded Nasty Skulkers over there, as well as one over here on the hill. So you can see he has kind of some weak units on the periphery here that are going to be very, very subject to getting harassed by those guys. In the back line, I have some Goblin Archers. So just standard Goblin Archers. And then I did bring the Rusty Errors. Hopefully I'm getting that right. But they do have Sunder armor as well as poison attacks. So against the Dwarves, the fact that they can sunder their armor, and let's go ahead and see. Yeah, I can't get over the tooltip right now, but it does kind of lower the armor of the unit that they're attacking. But something to consider, I believe it does affect your units with friendly fire as well. So just something to consider. But I feel like these are great against the Dwarves. I also have two big bosses, and then I have WURRZAG, who is just absolutely awesome. The effigy of the Git, which is right here, it actually locks an enemy hero or whatever you want in place for quite some time. It's really, really strong, guys, for 18 seconds, yeah. So that's brutal. If you have like a bunch of Goblin Archers or some Orc Boarboy Biggins and you want to just focus down an isolated enemy lord, it has become exponentially easier to do so. And he also has access to the Shaman abilities, so he does double for a Shaman. The only downside is he's quite expensive. And of course, I would not be true to this DLC if I didn't have Squigs. So I actually have two Squig herds, as you can see. These guys are just so freaking cool. They're getting ready to go party and eat some dwarves. And I have one group over here, and then I also have one Vanguarded on the other side. So on each side, I do have a Vanguarded group of Squigs, and then Squig herds, and then Nasty Skulkers. So very, very cool. My opponent has some Longbeards, and I'll go ahead and just hit play. He has Longbeards, he has a cannon, he has some Thunderers here and here, and then he also has a Thane, a Runesmith, and then I think he has a Rune Lord. Yeah, so he has a Rune Lord. He didn't put it on the mount, which is fine. I actually prefer to put it on the mount, but again, still learning a lot about this particular patch. And he also has some Miners here, and then he has Slayers and Ekron's Miners. So these guys, I believe, are armored, armor piercing. They have a special ranged weapon. They do the flame damage with their attack, and yeah, they're just essentially slightly stronger miners. So very, very cool there. So my opponent, he moves his Thunders up here on the hill because he's probably going to try and get this high ground, but unfortunately for him, there's a lot of nasty business, no pun intended, coming over from the hill here. So these Skulkers, they're just now visible to these guys. So they're going to get on there, and you can see the Squigs coming. So he immediately, I think, sees this and starts to try and run, but unfortunately for him, it is too late. These Squigs are hungry, and they're going to get in there and do some nasty charging. You can see they're just burying through those guys, doing some somersaults, and then the Skulkers are going to get in there as well. So these Thunders are taking pretty substantial shock damage across the line, so very, very tough for my opponent. On that same note, these Skulkers are coming over. They are still hidden, so the Squigs are also coming, and they're pretty open targets here because he does have these cannons and these organ guns, which are actually tearing into some of my troops here and doing pretty good damage. You can see these Black Orcs are taking a bit of HP damage, having lost 5 bottles already, but he's mainly focusing the Crimson Killers, which is absolutely the best choice. These guys, you'll see when I get in there, and I'll actually zoom in just to show you guys, they hit like absolute trucks. So definitely very excited for that. You can see the Squigs also are going to hopefully shut that down, and the Skulkers are coming over here. So on maps like this with all these great Vanguard options, they're very, very strong. So I do put the rusty arrows on here to sunder their armor, and if you take a look, let's see if we can get that here in a moment. If it actually shows it. Yeah, so their armor is down to, it looks like 48, so it lowers it quite a bit. But these guys, these with the double freaking great weapons, just clobber. They hit so freaking hard. So they're a really strong regiment of renown. I look forward to using them because I believe they do have a bit of splash damage, which is going to be pretty good. And you can see these dwarf warriors taking a beating. So my opponent supports with this runesmith, which will help a lot. He uses the rune of negation and armor to help that line just a little bit. And I am kind of trolling around the back with WURRZAG using my various the big WA buffs and using the traditional WA just to buff these black orcs in the front line. And then at the same time, I do slip some skulkers past his front line to get them back here on these miners who I don't want throwing those out to charges for free. But in the back line, the squigs and the skulkers have shut down the organ guns here. And then also over here, these squigs are just, they're having a good time eating some dwarves. I don't know if I've actually seen animation yet of one of the dwarves getting eaten, but they are flying around. And the fact that these guys have armor piercing is just so strong. Definitely a very, very good option, and they are pretty fast with 70 run speed, but something to note, guys, is they are quite a bit slower than the traditional Goblin Wolf Riders. So if you're looking for more maneuverability, you know, the Goblin Wolf Riders may be better in other matchups, like against Empire, whose ranged kind of squishy units aren't that, you know, heavily armored, but against the Dwarves, the Squigs are just so good, and you can see them just jumping around, going to town, doing somersaults, the works. So hopefully, yeah, we can get an eating animation. But I haven't seen anything yet, guys. But in the front line, the Black Orcs, of course, are traditionally just one of the best units against the Greenskins, against the Dwarves, hands down. So they're doing a great job just kind of laying the beat down on these poor Dwarf warriors. Over here, the Black Orcs have also won it out, and you can see, I believe his Rune Lord is right here, and I did use the Effigy of Get. So the rest of his forces started to pull back, but unfortunately, with the Effigy, this Rune Lord is not going to be able to pull back, and he is just going to get the circle beating from all these Black Orcs and Skulkers, and there's also some missile troops, I think, in the mix here. The Squigs, though, obviously the MVPs of this game, and, you know, the Slayers are, it's interesting, because I've actually played like 7 or 8 games so far as the Dwarves, and, you know, most Greenskin players are not using the Orc Boy Biggins, they're not using Cav, they're just using Squigs, and I found that the Slayers are a bit of a riskier investment now in this matchup. I still think they may be worth bringing, especially the other equivalent, which has the charge resist, but Squigs, as well as these nasty Skulkers and all these kind of low-tier, new, relatively good Goblin troops are really good at tying down Slayers, so just something to consider, guys. So you see the Squigs here, maybe we can get a pretty cool animation of one of them getting caught out here, but the Squiggards are just so freaking cool. Definitely understand why they are a cult classic in the Warhammer universe, but they're going to town, having some fun, chasing down the Dwarves and, you know, piercing their armor. So that was always one of the strengths, to be honest, of the Dwarves, is the fact that their missile troops and even their backliners are very, you know, tanky and have a lot of armor. But now that these harass units and these Cav have the armor piercing in them, and they're pretty cheap, if I'm not mistaken, a cheaper equivalent to the Orc War Boys, who I guess also have armor piercing, but again, the Squigs are just so much cooler. I mean, I think you're just going to have to go with them by default. So they're going to get in here and finish off some of these Slayers, and it looks like that might be all she wrote, but the Skulker's doing a great job raising their blades for Harambe and having a good time. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that game. It's definitely a very tough world for the Dwarves right now against the Greenskins with all these new tools and Vanguard deployment, and WURRZAG is a great new leader. I actually haven't experimented much with Skarsnik yet, but I definitely will be putting out some videos with him in the next few days. But the new Black Orc Regiment, pretty darn solid. They hit hard. Again, they do fall victim to getting focus fired by cannons and other units like that, but the, you know, Nasty Skulker is by far one of the new coolest units. And the Rusty Errors, I'm always like stumbling on the words as I try and read all the phonetics of the Greenskin language, but they're cool. I mean, they lower the armor. If someone brought like a group of Hammers or Iron Breakers, these guys would be really good. So I would honestly suggest them, considering how cheap they are in most Greenskin builds. So yeah, just my opinion, guys. And of course, the Squigs are very good. They hit a little bit harder than the Goblin Wolf Riders, and they do have that same Vanguard deployment. Obviously, in just a traditional lineup with the Orc Boar Boys, and, you know, they don't have Vanguard, but they're going to be a little more resilient. But the Squigs with the Vanguard, and to the fact that they have armor piercing with Vanguard, is very, very strong. The Runesmith definitely should be put on a mount, in my opinion. I think that makes him a lot better, but excuse me, the Rune Lord. And I'm a huge fan of the Rune Lord. He is so freaking strong and definitely has just been a great unit. His buffs that he provides are essentially double that of a traditional Rune Lord, so very, very good. I definitely think he's a great candidate for a Lord if you're, you know, picking your army out. So yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed that one. I'll definitely be putting out more content. And again, I just want to finish with, as the Dwarves, the Ethereal Lords are essentially, in my opinion, the key to beating the Greenskins. They're so good against them, and honestly, they're unbreakable too, and they cause terror. So against these very popular Goblin builds right now, definitely try those out. So again, thanks for watching, guys. I'll be posting my Dwarf video as well as my Chaos video in the next, maybe today or tomorrow, but stay tuned, guys. Thanks again for your support, and have an excellent night.